Alright, so business has been going very, very good as of late, and I think it's time to finally buy a jet. It's an idea I've been toying with for the past few years. This one specifically is going to be based out of London, which is pretty much our second home. For Dubai, I'm very happy with Emirates and everything that comes with that. So we're here in LA. I called up my friend Colin from Amalfi Jets, and I was like, listen, I need your professional opinion. Here's the rough budget. We're going to be pinging around Europe. Show me 3 different price points of jets, and hopefully by the end of today, we'll walk away knowing which jet is the right one for me. I was telling you about where my head's at, maybe a nice little get-around plane for Europe, and you were like, you know, you should come check out some of the fleet, see what we have. And today we're here with 3 very completely different airplanes, different purposes, and most importantly, very different budgets. So
it's common for people that are chartering to kind of upgrade to buying your aircraft. And again, everyone would be lying if they said they didn't want to own an airplane. I mean, it's completely awesome. However, it really depends on the type of aircraft they're buying, especially on your trips. Now, we're here to Gulfstream. It's the biggest, the best. But before we start here, gotta start at the bottom. Let's start with the King Air 350. I don't even want to call this the bottom airplane. All the pilots would cancel me. This is a King Air 350. So this is not a private jet, it's a turboprop, but it still technically is a jet because it actually is a jet engine that powers the propeller. So when people think of, you know, buying your own airplane, most people actually look to a turboprop because this airplane seats 8 people. It is single pilot certified, so you only need 1 pilot, and you can get anywhere from like here to 3 hours, so roughly like 15 to 1600 nautical miles of range. Now this one is one of the original kind of older models of the 350. So it does have nice avionics, but again, I mean, you can see it's not your brand new leather kind of inside, but again, still comfortable, still a very clean airplane. Now to buy one of these right now, it's about 2 to 3 million depending on the avionics, how well it's optioned, but pretty good. Now the cool thing about the King Air, the turboprops can get you into airports that you wouldn't normally be able to get to in like a Gulfstream. So Saint-Tropez, Cannes, you can get in. So this does have its kind of wins and its losses. You can get in smaller places, but bigger things, you know. Really
okay, so the buying is, that's no problem. Maintenance and running cost. What is something like this set back?
So direct operating costs really kind of varies if you're going to own it, and if you're a pilot, you're going to fly it yourself. If you're going to hire crew, direct operating costs on this usually about $1,600 to $2,000 an hour. So think about your typical London to Paris, roughly anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 US. But again, I mean, it really depends how you're operating it. However, the big difference though is the direct operating costs can be cheap, but it's also where you're going to park it, kind of maintenance you're going to have on it. Are the engines on different programs? Do you want to redo the interior? Do you want to put Starlink and stuff on board? So it really depends.
How much does it actually cost to put Starlink on board?
For an airplane like that, it's usually about $200,000. Okay. For something like this, I got to check specifically. So there's certain airplanes that Starlink's certified for. Okay. I don't believe they actually make direct installs for the King Airs yet, but what you can do is you can buy a Starlink dish and you just like put it in the window, and really? Sometimes people do that. It's cheaper than installing it, but again, not the full walk on board connect to Starlink versus a giant Starlink mounted airplane. But it gets the job done. However, the one thing to note about turboprops versus jets, turboprops, you're not going to fly as high, so there's a lot of weather. You actually have to fly through or around the weather. As well as it's small airplanes, you're going to feel the turbulence a lot more than you would in something like a Gulfstream. I think a lot of people look at like airplane maximum published range of the airplane. However, usually that's done under perfect conditions. So maybe 1 pilot, 1 or 2 people, so you can get the max range. But you take this airplane, you fill it with 8 people, fill it with fuel. Now you're heavily limited. Realistically, under 2 hours is perfect for this, but you're not really going to be doing like a long London to Dubai aircraft like this. Yeah, you could just stop for fuel like 19 times, and at that point you might as well just charter a bigger airplane.
For sure.
So this is the lowest, again, still a great airplane, but when you think of private jet, people want to walk up and see a jet, not necessarily a propeller airplane.
And how much are you paying to charter this?
This right now charters anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 an hour anywhere in the world.
3 to 4K.
Yep.
I didn't even know you could charter for 3 to 4K.
3 to 4K depending on the route. Let's say you're doing like an LA to Vegas and back, you're probably looking at like 8,500 to 9,000. So wow. Yeah, 4,500, but still pretty
very reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, we're very spoiled living in Dubai. We're spoiled in the sense of like because of Emirates.
Yeah.
Like I would take Emirates over private, as long as you do private terminal on either side, like suites here, and then we have Al Majlis, our equivalent in Dubai. As long as you do that, we took we took one BBJ, and I was like, it just felt weird. I mean, there was whatever, it was like 4
a
of us.
BBJ is an awesome airplane, but performance-wise, like a Global 7500 or 8000 will outperform it. And like it's a huge airplane, we can only fit 22 to 25 depending on how it's configured. I mean, it's awesome, but most like efficient for the trip doesn't really make sense as well as you're limited. So you can't land that airplane a lot of places. You also could have issues with parking. Like if you're flying in for the Super Bowl or a big event, you know, the ramps are full. So you show up and say, hey, I want a BBJ. It's going to take up the spot of like 8 airplanes. You may get stuck and actually have to land somewhere else. almost like a big international airport. So they're fun, they're cool, not really the best. Bigger isn't always better.
Heard it here first. All right, let's check out the next one.
This is the most popularly chartered light jet in Europe. So this is the Citation Mustang. So Cessna, owned by Textron, is kind of like your Toyota of aircraft.
They don't really do big jets, do they?
Their biggest is a Longitude. They just started getting into that category. They really own this market, the light jet market. I mean, it's a simple, safe, great, reliable aircraft. Like a lot of the training aircraft are Cessna 172s. So when you step out of that and fly something like this, they literally say that this flies just like a big, faster one of those. But this is great airplanes. So this range of this aircraft is roughly about 900 nautical miles. So actually a little bit less than that aircraft, but it's a jet and it's gonna fly quicker, faster, and higher than the King Air. So this seats 4. So let's step aboard.
So a quick announcement to let you know that we are actually bringing back a fan favorite, which is the $1,000 giveaway in every Unscripted video. This is really just something to help you along on your journey. I cannot put into words how much I appreciate you. And hopefully this is just a small little gift to help you along your journey. So the way we used to do it is it used to be a question and then I used to have to answer it in the next vlog. And sometimes it would just kind of mess up the flow. These days, we're gonna keep it super simple. All you have to do is like the video, watch the entirety of it, and leave a comment. Maybe that's your favorite part of the video. Maybe that's roasting something me or Alex or Amara or any part of our crew did. Maybe that's leaving a question, an observation. I actually don't care. I don't care if it's short. I don't care if it's long. Look, I can always just tell when something is intentional. So if it's an AI comment, I'm gonna be able to tell. If you haven't watched the whole video, trust me, I'm gonna be able to tell. And of course on YouTube, we can always go back and see who's actually a repeat commenter. So those people will always get preferential treatment, you know, if you've been commenting for a long time now. So with all that being said, make sure you do that and come back to the next video. And we will always leave it in the comments section who the winner is and the instructions to actually claim your prize. So with all that being said, sorry for the interruption. Let's get back to today's video.
So we're on the Citation Mustang. Seats 4, very different than the King Air, but this is a private jet. Has 2 jet engines. Now it's a single pilot certified aircraft as well. It's gonna fly much quicker than the King Air. So you're talking LA to Vegas, wheels up, wheels down, like 45 minutes. London to Paris, just under an hour. But it's great. You have a separate baggage compartment, so you can fit a lot of good space. These airplanes, direct operating cost is actually comparable to that aircraft, the previous King Air. So anywhere from $1,800 to $2,000 an hour, depending on, again, whether you're gonna fly it or if you're gonna hire pilots. But it's great. It's a comfortable airplane, very, very reliable. If the engines are on programs, it's kind of like a warranty. So essentially, if I buy this airplane, anytime I run those engines, I'm paying a set price per hour. But if anything breaks, the engine program covers it. So it's a little bit harder to find engines on programs in the propeller market. So on an actual, like, protecting your investment, a jet still kind of makes sense over a King Air, again, depending on your types of trips. So this can fly faster, quicker, and higher, but you can take a lot more people in the King Air than you could over the Mustang. So looking at stepping up from chartering, obviously it's interesting because if you're chartering frequently, like your Challenger 350s, your Legacies, and your Globals, this isn't usually what people imagine because it's kind of a trade-off, right? An aircraft like that's 2 to 3 million. This is roughly about 4 to 5 million, depending on how it's spec'd, depending on the amount of time. But having an aircraft like this gives you, the ability to pay a lot less. So it's kind of more expensive up front, but then you're also paying, less per hour. But again, owning an airplane, it's expensive.
For sure.
That's where the famous phrase, if it fucks, flies, or floats, it's cheaper to rent it.
Okay, so the running cost per year on this?
Depending on how often you fly, a couple $100,000 a year. So let's say $400,000 or $500,000 a year if you're flying maybe 150, 200 hours. But again, like I think aircraft like this are interesting. Like if you're doing maximum 2 to 3 hour trips and you're only traveling with 3 or 4 people, you're gonna physically spend less per hour by owning it. But again, like there are different tax benefits of buying that aircraft and being able to take depreciation depending on how you structure it. Most people buy aircraft because, you want to call someone up and say, I want that airplane ready to go. You don't want to have to call and wait and see what's available and all these different things. Or if you book a jet and then the owner of that airplane needs that airplane that day, so then your trip gets canceled, so you need to find a replacement airplane. When it's your airplane, you can do whatever you want.
How important is, like for me personally, when I fly, I never eat. Like how important is catering for people?
It depends. It's interesting. Like we always say the smaller the jet, the bigger the catering order, and the bigger the jet, the smaller the catering order. So a lot of the people, and again, like no shame, like we do a lot of like bachelor trips. So people like split a jet from LA to Vegas and back on like 11 different debit cards, ask for like a, whole payment plan. But those catering orders always champagne, caviar, oysters, whereas our richest customers are showing up jeans and a t-shirt. Maybe you're picking up McDonald's on the way or you're getting a salad. Something simple, easy, you would never tell. Now we're stepping to the biggest and the best. So when people think of private jets, you think of a Gulfstream. This is the Gulfstream G4SP. So these were all made from 1992 to 2002. This airplane just got refurbished in 2025. So from our perspective, the passenger's perspective, it's essentially a brand new airplane. Paint's brand new, I think like 3 weeks old.
How expensive is the paint?
Paint's like $250,000.
I don't see that many people getting creative with their paint.
That's
rules?
done for, there's no rules. So there's people that have like matte black airplanes. Yeah. It comes down to one, heat and maintenance. So painting it white when you're flying in the flight levels, you're gonna cool your aircraft so it's not gonna get as hot. So if this was like a full black airplane and it was sitting here for a couple hours, it's gonna get hotter inside. You need to run the APU, burn more jet fuel, put more time on the APU to cool down the airplane. And then black will absorb the heat so it can cause the paint to crack. Like again, this is just painted, but if we looked at an older airplane, you can see like micro cracks in the paint that over time you have to repaint the airplane. So white just keeps it there.
So I was trying to figure out the jet game, because as you know, you can have toys and you can do it somewhat responsibly. Very quickly, I realized that does not apply in the jet world.
It's an entirely different ballgame. I mean, owning a small King Air light jet's very different from an aircraft like this. So let's talk about owning, right? So this airplane right now, let's take anywhere from 5 to 6 million. So we buy 5 to 6 million. This airplane has a range of roughly about 3,800 to 4,000 nautical miles. So you're talking London to Dubai, you're talking New York to London and so forth pretty consistently. Average cost to operate per hour, you're roughly at around $8,000 an hour, especially if it's an older aircraft, but it's an older airplane. So as things break, they become very, very expensive. And these are, this is soon to be a 23-year-old airplane. You can't tell because it's really nice inside, but people are still buying aircraft like this because one, it's a Gulfstream, so you get the cabin, you get the performance, 12 to 16 people, great range. And when you're not using it, if you charter this out, these are very popular in the charter market, so you can make your money back. Whereas something like the Mustang or the King Air, they're popular in the charter market, but not as popular to make it pencil out. This is a G4, so always 2 pilot crew. You have a separate crew compartment. So they actually have a separate bathroom right there and a jump seat. So you'll have a private flight attendant to be serving drinks, food, and everything like that. But this one is actually a lot more popular because you have an aft galley. So you don't need to walk up and bother the flight attendant to get food. You can walk back there, get your own food. You have a separate bathroom right there, fully enclosed lavatory, and then you have your baggage compartment, which is really popular among Gulfstreams because you can get to the baggage compartment from the aircraft. Full stand-up cabin. This is kind of the pinnacle of private jets. When you think of like your slightly larger aircraft, maybe a G550, all you're really getting is like 2 extra windows. 8, this is 6, so yeah, 2 extra windows. Getting a little bit extra room on the G550. Performance is where you're gonna notice it, because that aircraft can perform roughly 5 to 6,000 nautical miles.
And etiquette, you're coming aboard someone's jet. Maybe give the audience some
so private jet etiquette. Now there is on every private jet the owner seat. Now, this one's configured a little bit differently. The owner's seat would technically be right over there if it was 4. It's always on the right side of the aircraft. And the reason it's called the owner's seat is, again, the owner normally sits there, but you also have direct view of the captain. So most of the time, if you're on the airplane, you're very close to the captain. You can be sitting there and you can ask the pilot, hey, how's the weather looking? You can have that conversation. In this aircraft, this is the owner's seat. Also, because we have all of the buttons to control everything in the aircraft, all the lights, the air show, the shades from this one spot.
Where's owner's headspace with smoking?
It depends. So if it's your airplane, it's your airplane. You can do whatever you want. You can smoke, you can join the Mile High Club on board. On a charter side, a little bit different. Obviously, if you're renting this airplane, it's not your airplane. There's certain tails that are approved to smoke on board, but it can get pretty expensive because right after your charter, you need to clean and sometimes fumigate the entire airplane. But you can smoke on board, so it really depends. However, you can't smoke weed on board, obviously, in the States, and we've had that happen one time where one of our clients turned the airplane into a hot box and they had to emergency land and pilots had to don oxygen masks for the remainder of the flight. I mean, when it comes back to like private jet etiquette, it's funny, like we've seen clients that are flying with their boss or, someone's paying for the airplane. The last thing you want to do is walk up and sit in the owner's seat. It's always polite to board last and then let them tell you where to sit. Obviously, red wine, when you're drinking on board, you gotta be careful because if we were to tip this over, I mean, thank God it's not white carpet. It can get really expensive because like, let's say we spilled right here. We would need to recarpet the entire section of this airplane, which can cost up to $100,000, $150,000 from, a $400 or $500 bottle of wine.
But who's paying for that?
If you charter the airplane and you spill, you're responsible for the damage that you bring to the airplane. That was probably one of our worst, not as expensive. The most expensive is one of our clients rented a Lamborghini and pulled up to the airplane and clipped the plane when they were pulling it back, and that was really expensive.
Do you find that there's a correlation between younger guests and more problems that arise?
Yes, in our experience, younger guests have more problems. It's interesting. You have your new money and your old money, right? You can, I think you may have actually said this, that slow success builds character, fast excels, builds ego. And if you look at a lot of these new 19, 20-year-old kids, just started a company making a bunch of money, usually they're going for the bigger airplanes to compete, get the ramp presence. But they're being disrespectful to the pilots, to the flight attendants, they're blasting music. Like we've had pilots ask them to turn it down because you can't hear air traffic control because they're blasting music so much. Versus your kind of more older customers, maybe a little bit conservative, but you can tell if someone flies private frequently because one, they show up to the airplane, they're not taking a photo, they're shaking the pilot's hand. Most of the time our clients recognize the pilots because they've flown on this airplane before. They're, usually tipping the flight attendants and pilots the second they step on board. And it's usually a decent bottle of wine and a simple fast food, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Whereas we've seen beer pong tables on board with some people. That was probably my favorite because that was just hilarious. We had this client texting us saying, Colin, the flight attendant is telling us to stop our beer pong table. This is ridiculous. We're not even being that loud. To then the flight attendant texting me at the same time, she's probably up there and this guy's right over here, saying, your passengers are being crazy. They spilled beer all over the floor. They're blasting music. We have to get this to stop. And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, they don't teach you this in business school. Like, how do we figure this out? So working through fun different scenarios like that. But I will say that for us with our customers, 99% of them are the most simple, down-to-earth, wealthiest customers. Whereas your showy, pretentious, very gauche people tend to be the ones splitting the jet across like 11 different people.
So at what point does it make sense to own a plane?
Over 300 hours a year.
Over
300 hours a year consistently where charter isn't able to meet your needs. And I guess what I mean by that is you call, like if you have a lot of really last minute, I need an airplane in 2 hours. And by that point, we may not have a Challenger 300. Maybe it's only a Citation Mustang or a PC-12. That is when you start running into issues like that where you're looking at availability, having that aircraft there is helpful. But in all things, airplanes break. Every airplane is gonna have your unscheduled maintenance, so when you don't expect things to break, and your scheduled maintenance. 25% of our jet card base are aircraft owners. So they own Globals, Gulfstreams, because when that airplane goes into service, you still need to fly private. You're gonna use that jet card because you can use it anywhere in the world. So it's kind of like a little flight department in your pocket.
So what do you think of Drake's jet?
It's a cool airplane. It's not the most practical. I have a lot of thoughts on Drake's airplane. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a private 767, so I'm not gonna say it's not awesome. It's just not the most practical for some hard to reach places. But if you take, the jet to a helicopter, it's just as good.
What do you think of the interior?
It's nice. I mean, I like the different cabin zone. I think the livery is not really what I would go for. Like my preferred aircraft is you have like your typical tan carpet, tan seats, your typical like nice walnut wood accents. Very like traditionalist, but when I think of private jet, that's what I think of. Not a big fan of the black seats, the carbon fiber and all those new things. I think Drake's jet is nice. I've seen some of the lighting that happens at night. That's cool. Not really my cup of tea.
How much do you think that paint job was?
Well over $1 million for an aircraft like that. Yeah.
But it just doesn't make sense. There's just not that many places you can land it.
I mean, a 767, you're not gonna land at Teterboro, New York. You're landing at probably Newark or JFK. So you're landing at these big international airports where parking's super, super expensive. And you're taking up half the ramps. They're gonna charge you more because now they can't park any other aircraft. It's cool, but again, bigger is not better, and size does matter in aviation. So you're gonna want something a little bit smaller or better for that mission at hand.
What about Rick Ross's jet?
He has a nice G550.
What do you think of him getting clowned on recently?
Which time?
He was caught flying commercial.
Well, interesting. That is something that still shocks me, and this is common with a lot of our customers. I have a client that spends $1 million a year in private jets, and on some flights, he's like, I'm just gonna fly commercial. I'm like, how are you gonna fly commercial? But that is the big discussion in aviation. Even the people that are the wealthiest and are chartering the biggest airplanes, if commercial airline service can connect it directly, it doesn't always make sense to charter. Chartering makes sense when you're cutting out the layovers and getting directly where you wanna go. What was the first private jet you chartered?
It's funny you asked that question. I think that's why I have such a soft spot for the 350. That was the first jet.
Really?
Yeah, and I just remember I was just like, it was just great. It was a great experience.
I mean, it's interesting. Like there's certain airplanes that you're just drawn to. I love the Gulfstream. The light jets are not the biggest airplane. I'm drawn to that because as a kid, that was the airplane I wanted to fly. So we filmed a video where I actually piloted one of these airplanes and we landed at Tahoe. It was such a cool experience. So the first private jet I chartered actually was a CJ3, which is really interesting. I think the biggest thing for me is getting to share it with other people means $1 million more than chartering a private jet by myself is cool. But sharing that experience with other people makes it all worth it. So that 350 charter, where was that from and to?
That was London Saint-Tropez.
Yeah. And was it just you or did you bring friends?
Yeah. Two of my best friends.
Yeah.
So I think going back to your point, it's like that And it was their first time as well.
Yep.
So I think, yeah,
It's always cool to show people flying private for the first time because, I mean, again, I think that's like when you think of success, you think of what? A red Ferrari, a private jet, or like a yacht. And I think being able to show people the world of private aviation is really exciting because once you fly private, like, you know, less than 1% of the world has and will fly private. So to be able to share that with other people is really, really cool.
What color is your new Ferrari?
Red.
There we go.
Men.
We're very simple creatures.
Oh, yes. Very.